You wake up on a stone floor. No mattress, no pillow, no blanket. The floor is your bed, and you have slept on it every night for as long as you can remember. Outside, Rome is already alive, the most powerful city in the world. 1 million people, marble temples, running water, underfloor heating. The Romans invented concrete, surgical tools, and newspapers. They built roads that still exist today, and you built none of it. You just maintain it, silently, invisibly, because today and every day, you are property. Not a person, property, with a price tag, and an owner who can do whatever he wants with you. Welcome to Rome, 100 AD. I am a household slave, and this is the day that will change how you see human history forever. It is before dawn. I am already awake because I have to be. I am a household slave, what the Romans called a servus domesticus, in the home of a wealthy Roman senator. This house is called a domus. It has marble floors, painted walls, a central garden courtyard, and its own private bathhouse. It is beautiful. I live in the basement. The slave quarters are below the main house, small, dark, shared with 11 other slaves. We sleep on straw mats on stone floors. We have no privacy, no possessions. The clothes on my back are not mine. They belong to my master. Let me tell you something that might shock you. In ancient Rome, at the height of the empire, slaves made up approximately 30 to 40% of the entire population of Italy. That means 1 in every 3 people you would pass on a Roman street was enslaved. The entire Roman economy, its farms, its mines, its households, its construction, ran on slave labor. Rome was not just built by slaves. Rome was powered by slaves every single day. And most Romans saw absolutely nothing wrong with this. Slavery was not considered a moral issue. It was considered a natural part of life. Philosophers wrote about it calmly. Laws regulated it carefully. It was simply the system. That is the first disturbing thing I need you to understand before this day begins. This was not considered evil by the people doing it. It was Tuesday. My day begins the moment the master's family begins to stir, which means my day begins before theirs. My role as a household slave is specific. I am assigned to the colina, the kitchen, and to personal service for the master's family. This means I light the fires. I fetch water from the cistern. I prepare the morning bread and honey. I lay out the family's clothing. I stand silently in rooms waiting to be needed. The work itself is not always physically brutal. Unlike mine slaves or agricultural slaves, who had the most horrific lives in the Roman world, household slaves sometimes had warm food, shelter, and even occasional education. Some were trusted with finances. Some became tutors to Roman children. But here is what never changes regardless of your role. You have no rights. None. Under Roman law, a slave was not a person. The Latin term was res, a thing. A slave could not own property, could not marry legally, could not refuse any order, could not go anywhere without permission, could not speak in court, could not inherit anything. And if a master mistreated a slave, beat them, starved them, worked them to death, there was no law protecting the slave. For most of Roman history, a master could legally kill their own slave for any reason or no reason at all. I carry a heavy pot of water across the courtyard. My arms ache. A family member walks past me without making eye contact. I do not exist to them. I am part of the furniture. It is 7 a.m. I have been working for 2 hours. I have not eaten yet. That is normal. Not all slaves in Rome were equal. And that is one of the most psychologically complex parts of this world. At the top of the slave hierarchy were the educated slaves, Greeks mostly. Rome conquered Greece, and then, as the saying went, Greece conquered Rome culturally. Educated Greek slaves became tutors, doctors, accountants, and secretaries. They were valuable. They were sometimes treated almost as members of the household. Below them were skilled slaves, craftsmen, cooks, personal attendants. Below them were unskilled domestic workers like me. And below all of us, in conditions so terrible that most of them died within a few years, were the agricultural slaves on farms and the mine slaves in the silver and copper mines. If you were sold to the mines, your life expectancy dropped to just a few years. The work was so brutal, the conditions so deadly, that mine slaves were essentially being worked to death on purpose because it was cheaper to buy new slaves than to keep the old ones alive. I know this. Every slave in Rome knows this. And that knowledge is its own kind of torture. You are always aware that things could be worse. That awareness keeps you compliant, obedient, grateful for small mercies that you should never have needed to be grateful for. At 9 a.m., the master's family eats breakfast. I serve them. Fresh bread, olives, eggs, honey, fruit. The food smells incredible. I eat at midday, whatever is left over. If there is anything left over, it is afternoon. The master is at the Senate. His wife rests. The children are with their Greek tutor in the garden. For about an hour, the house is quiet. And in this quiet, something unexpected happens. The master's youngest child, a girl of about 7, wanders into the kitchen. She is supposed to be with her tutor. She looks at me with that uncomplicated curiosity that only children have, and she asks me what my name is. I tell her. She repeats it carefully, like she is learning a new word. Then she asks where I am from. And this question opens something in me that I keep locked most of the time, because I am not originally from Rome. Most slaves were not. Slaves in Rome came from conquered territories across the empire, from Greece, from Egypt, from Gaul, from Britain, from the Germanic tribes, from Africa, from the Middle East. The Roman Empire's constant wars were essentially slave supply operations. Every conquered territory sent prisoners back to Rome in chains. I tell the girl I am from far away. She nods seriously. Then her tutor calls her name and she runs back to the garden. She does not say goodbye, not because she is unkind, simply because it does not occur to her that a goodbye to a slave is necessary. That small moment, being seen for 1 second as a person and then immediately being unseen again, is somehow the most painful thing that has happened today. Tonight, the master is hosting a convivium, a Roman dinner party, and this is where my day goes from exhausting to something far darker. A Roman elite dinner party was one of the most extraordinary social events of the ancient world. Guests reclined on couches. Romans ate lying down, considered the sophisticated way. There were multiple courses, wine mixed with water, entertainers, musicians, poets, sometimes acrobats, conversation about politics, philosophy, business. It sounds wonderful, unless you are a slave serving it. For the next 4 hours, I do not stop moving. Food in, dishes out, wine refilled, spills cleaned, requests anticipated before they are spoken. A guest snaps his fingers at me. I come immediately. He does not look at me. He points at his empty cup. I fill it. He waves me away. I am 32 years old. I have worked in this house since I was 11. I speak 3 languages, my native tongue, Greek, and Latin. I can read. I can do mathematics. I know more about running this household than anyone in it. None of that matters. None of that is relevant. None of that is seen. At one point during the dinner, the master makes a joke about a slave who was punished for breaking a cup. The guests laugh. I stand in the corner holding a tray and I do not react. You learn not to react. Reaction is dangerous. Because here is the reality of being a Roman household slave that historians often soften when they write about it. The threat of violence was constant. Not always enacted, but always present, always possible, and everyone in the room knew it. The guests have gone. It is past midnight. I am still cleaning. And now I need to tell you the things that most history books mention briefly and move on from. Because the Borrowed Lives promise is that I tell you what it actually felt like from the inside. And from the inside, this is what Roman slavery actually looked like. Roman law, for most of its history, stated that if a master was murdered, every slave in the household, every single one, regardless of guilt or innocence, was to be executed. This was not a rare theoretical law. It was enforced. In 61 AD, a Roman senator named Pedanius Secundus was killed by one of his slaves. The Roman Senate debated what to do. Some argued for mercy. They were shouted down. All 400 slaves in his household, men, women, children, were executed. 400 people who had nothing to do with the murder, killed because the law said so. And Rome watched. A slave could theoretically be freed. This was called manumission. Some masters did free their slaves, especially educated ones, as a reward for long service. A freed slave became a liberatus, a freedman, and could eventually gain Roman citizenship. Some freed slaves became wealthy and successful. But here's what that hope actually meant for a slave living through it. Freedom was never guaranteed. It was a gift that only the master could give. You could work perfectly for 30 years and never receive it. You could be free tomorrow. You had no way to know. You had no way to make it happen. You simply had to hope that the person who owned you felt like being generous before you died. I blow out the last lamp in the dining room. The house is dark and silent. I walk back down to the basement. I lie down on the stone floor. Tomorrow it begins again, and the day after that, and the day after that, for as long as I live, or for as long as my master decides to keep me. It is almost dawn. I have slept perhaps 4 hours, and I want to leave you with something that I have been thinking about all day. We look at ancient Rome and we see the aqueducts, the roads, the laws, the philosophy, the art. We call it one of the greatest civilizations in human history. And in many ways it was. But that civilization was built on the backs of people who had no choice, who were never credited, who were never freed in the history books, whose names we do not know. The disturbing truth is not just what happened to Roman slaves. The disturbing truth is how normal it all was, how accepted, how unremarkable. The smartest, most educated, most philosophically advanced people in the ancient world looked at slavery and said, yes, this is fine. This is how the world works. And that should terrify you. Not because of Rome, but because of what it tells us about how humans are capable of normalizing anything, absolutely anything, if the system around them says it is normal. Every era has its blind spots, things that future generations will look back at with the same horror we feel looking at Roman slavery. The question worth asking, the truly unsettling question is, what are ours? I don't have a comfortable answer. And I don't think you should want one. This was Rome. This was one day. This was one life. This has been Borrowed Lives. If this video made you feel something, uncomfortable, angry, thoughtful, then it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Subscribe to Borrowed Lives. Next week, we borrow another life you were never meant to live. And drop a comment. What moment in this video hit you the hardest? I read every single one.